I know that Deputy Chief Mendoza wanted to join the meeting. Will she be joining this evening or not?
So she had
Yeah.
pre-planned leave prior to the scheduling of this meeting. So she will not be in attendance for this meeting, but she will be in attendance for the other meetings. She wanted to make sure that I made that very, very clear.
Okay, that's great. We're clear.
Okay, and one other thing, um, she also wanted me to just express, how important this is as far as addressing discipline and the implications that it has as it relates to task 5 and 45, how
Yeah.
it impact the department moving forward. So she wants to just, be sure that we don't fast track anything, because the consequence of this is great. It's very, very important and very, very serious. And so she will make sure she attends the future meetings for this.
Okay, thank you. As long as she recognizes that she has a role to play, and if she's not here, maybe that role gets handled or not.
Well,
So that would be great.
I'm here in her stead for this, but she will be at the
Okay.
next. I appreciate you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Copious notes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. And I'm certain that Deputy Chief will do an outstanding job when she is present. And we will be meeting on a weekly basis now. And so next Wednesday, I don't know if she'll still be off, but you will work out and coordinate with her. And before then, she will have access to the minutes of this meeting. Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to go off mic because I'm still trying to drive my parents home. But I will be listening and I will engage as I can. Lieutenant Hubbard and I have had a conversation earlier today, a little bit about the process for today's meeting. I wanted to provide a slight update based upon our exceptional work on the racial profiling ad hoc. We have gotten, we're going to get the monitor's comments tomorrow. We have gotten some feedback from John Burris and Jim Channon. They all think it's incredible. The one suggestion that John Burris had was that we play up more Oakland experience, like how the Black Panthers shined a light on the notorious treatment of African American communities. And then Jim Channon wanted us to speak a little bit more about kind of how the NSA came into being. And Lieutenant Hubbard, if you have more information or details as it relates to that for our listening public, please add to it.
No, you explained it well. Thank you. And yes, those two things have been added. I am still adjusting some of the language in there, but I can easily send that out no later than tomorrow to
Okay.
to review.
That sounds great. Now, Micah, it still says we're in practice session. Have you switched that or no?
No, it shouldn't say that. It's recording and our guest is live, is
Okay.
access now. Yes.
No problem. It says it. So I was just, trying to check. At this point, I think that, like I said, I will go off mic, but wanted you all to have that update because we're really, really close. And we are being affirmed left, right, and center. We already knew we did an outstanding job, but it's always nice to have it affirmed by other subject matter experts. And with that, I'll hand off to you, Lieutenant Hubbard.
Thank you. Micah, can I please share my screen?
Yes. Are you not, did you try and it didn't work for you? There you go.
Without even checking. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, let me zoom in here. I know when we initially talked, I guess this was last week, we were pretty optimistic of having this done within a few weeks. So basically mid-October. I did the math. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this plan that I show on the screen here. But it's pretty aggressive, where if we were to get this done in 4 weeks, we would have to have a certain number of manual of rules to inspect. I am not one to say that that's impossible, but in the interest of what Captain Dorm said and Chief Mendoza, who's not here, I certainly don't want to rush this for the purpose of just getting it done. Obviously we want some quality behind it. So I'll go over this and we can make adjustments accordingly. But today we're already well into this. Just welcome. I think we all know each other. Captain, does everyone know Captain Dorn, by the way, who's in charge of internal affairs? You might as well go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, he has presented before us, so I think everybody's familiar. But Lieutenant Durham, if you want to provide a brief introduction, I'm happy to welcome.
My name is Gordon Dorm. I'm operating as the acting captain of internal affairs. I've been with the department approximately 17 years, and I've worked patrol. I worked in the school unit. I worked in criminal investigations division, CID. And then I headed over to foot patrol and then went to internal affairs where I've worked investigations, DLI, intake, and now operating as the captain of internal affairs. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, so since we now all know each other, let's just talk about where we're going with this. So, I briefly explained that we have two parallel documents. We have the discipline matrix, which really this ad hoc is about. But to understand what the discipline matrix is, there's a definition that's attached in the manual of rules. So the way it works, and I'll go over this again. Let's say that Brian Hubbard gets a stain for rudeness. There's a definition that you look at the manual rules and say, okay, does that fit the definition? If yes, okay, now we want to know what the punishment is, what the discipline is. One would then refer to the discipline matrix, and there's a range. So this ad hoc is to look at both of those documents. However, when I talked to Chief Mendoza this past week about this, she wanted to make sure that we're also look at any other attached policies that we're not, that doesn't just jump off the page. So in this process, I may have to dig deeper into our policies to make sure that if we influence one, it doesn't have a ripple effect and influence another. So I'm going to be very diligent in doing that, even while we're meeting. So that's really the purpose and objective. If I'm going to skip down really quick, just so I want to show you the proposed timeline here. This is, just aggressively if we want to move at a certain pace. Today we can focus on the review of the mission, vision, and value statement, and also the cultural accountability statement that I already have actually written. I wrote a draft of that this past week, so we're somewhat hopefully ahead of the curve. Excuse me, but it will require, I think, some thought as we close out today. So I don't think we'll be able to fight on it.
You didn't bring one, Daddy. You came out with that on.
Okay, we got to mute her.
Just tell her to come on.
There she is. Okay. So I'm hoping to look at those items today, and I'll show those on the screen here pretty soon. But if we were to then go right into the manual of rules and also the matrix, we would be looking at a pretty good number. And I did the math here. If we have 3 meetings to do this, not counting tonight, because tonight's just an introduction, we have 80 sections, 80 sections to review. So that's about 27 sections per meeting that we are going through and changing.
Okay, that's a lot, Lieutenant Hubbard, and we are not going to rush through this for the sake of getting it done. But it may mean that we want to break off into separate, smaller groups to review them.
Great. Yeah. Great. And I know Deacon Lyles brought up a really good point last week about just starting with the heavy stuff. And so that would be class 1 violations. And these are not in any particular order, but I did group them by class 1 versus class 2. So if you look at the appendix in the document I sent, and I can send this again, I listed all the class 1 violations to go through each one. And then as you scroll down after 40, there are the class 2 violations, which would not be as severe. With that in mind, of course, we do have some that we have to add. So we talked about this in the M19 ad hoc. We have a new draft manual of rules and violation for racial profiling specifically. That would be an addition to this document. Okay, any questions on that before we jump into the manual of rules and what I wrote? Okay. Okay, I'm just going to warn you, this is just a draft. If everyone can see that, this is our current manual of rules. To give people context, Chief Batts, which I forget how many chiefs ago that was, but he was the chief whose name was on this document, but it's well over a decade. That's how old this is. So I did remove the dates and the revision date. I did add right here Internal Affairs Division Deputy Chief. If for those who are aware of the court hearing last week for the NSA and the subsequent order that came out the next day, Judge Orrick now wants the deputy chief to be in charge of the Internal Affairs Division, and that deputy chief will be a direct report to the chief. So basically, the judge wants the chief of police to have daily interaction with the Internal Affairs Division.
I thought it was that that Internal Affairs has to report directly to the chief. I didn't know that there was a deputy chief in between. According to Orrick's order.
Yeah, he wants now a deputy chief and only a deputy chief to be in charge of internal affairs, as in that's their only job. They're not sharing a bureau where they're doing training and all these other things. It's just
so previously it was a lieutenant. Is that, am I correct?
Captain. Yeah. Which is Captain Dorn. So you have a captain and 3 lieutenants under him. And now there's a deputy chief over the captain, and that deputy chief is only responsible for internal affairs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I did change that. I did put the chief's name in here. All right, so now let's look at the manual of rules. I rewrote this preamble. I don't know the best way. I guess I can read it, or I could just pause while you all read it. I guess it's better that you read it because I don't read out loud very well. But I'll slowly scroll down after I give you some time. This is the preamble to the manual of rules. Any questions? And I'm going to email this out just because you can spend some time looking at it. I'm sorry. There's one other section here.
Ken Hubbard, did you email this out?
I did not. Sorry, I was working on this up until the last minute of
Yeah,
our meeting.
no, I get it.
But
I get. No, I
Yeah.
totally respect that. But unfortunately, I'm not. I probably have to read these kind of things at least twice or three
Yeah.
times. So
Understood. I'd be happy
Just
to
for me
email
to-
that
Yeah,
right now.
so let's do this, Lieutenant Hubbard. Appreciate all the work that you did, but yeah, if you
Yeah.
weren't able to send it out in advance, nobody can make the kind of real quality contributions in a moment. So I, if you all are in agreement, I think we could actually close our meeting and invite you all to take the time that we would have used in the meeting to digest, make some notes, and then either you can send the notes, to all of us in advance of the next meeting, or you can talk directly to Lieutenant Hubbard, whatever you all think is best. But I totally understand, both the diligent work of Lieutenant Hubbard as well as the inability to digest on the fly. So is that okay with everyone?
Yeah,
Yeah, before we-
I'd like Lieutenant Hubbard to, to send out the ones that are most egregious that we really need to pay attention to. We'll start with those first. I appreciate that, separating by incidents, ones and twos. That makes sense to me. But amongst the ones, the number ones,
Right,
which
the
one of
most
those are the most serious? And let's start with that one first. And I like to hear your thoughts with him, and then and I'll just do the reading over the week.
Sure.
And to that point, Deacon, I'm not sure, Lieutenant Durham, can you support Lieutenant Hubbard since we don't have the benefit of Deputy Mendoza to highlight the most egregious ones?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Lieutenant Hubbard, you good?
I am. Before we go, can I also just know that I updated the mission and vision. So the issue with this is this obviously is attached to our entire organization. I don't know if Chief Mitchell, usually with the new chief, we have the mission, vision, values updated. These have been updated since Chief Armstrong, or I should say because of Chief Armstrong.
Okay.
But I will
I
send
don't
this
think
out
we have
also.
to- Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think we have to wait on him, especially since he's out until September 16th. So we're just gonna plug full speed ahead with the great preparation that you've done, Lieutenant Hubbard, and obviously in consult with Lieutenant Durham to identify the most egregious. And then if you could send out, today is Wednesday, would it be realistic to send out on Friday the most egregious ones so that people who digest primarily during the weekend can have all that information at one spot?
Certainly.
Okay, so Vice Chair, you good with that?
Yeah, I am good with that. The one thing I would add, though, and I can't remember, I know we discussed this last time, was also along with the most egregious violations, what are the most common violations? And I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I
Great.
think that'll
Thank
help
you.
also compare with that. But other
Appreciate
than
your
that,
young memory. Mhm.
yeah, and from what I could tell on the speed reading, it looks like it's pretty succinct, but definitely would love a little bit more time to digest. And I would say for it to mirror our other cultural accountability statement also in regards to discipline and highlighting discipline and how serious we are taking this position, and I think Deacon Lyles had brought that up in several meetings back around just really focusing on, discipline, and without discipline it's really hard to get that behavior.
I think that is acute, and I think that's acutely important. And since we're already kind of delivering a similar approach, I think it makes sense for us to do that, if we're handling anything else that is also significant. So with that, I hope that everybody will spend the next hour and a half trying to digest, writing notes and what have you. We will expect to get follow-up from Lieutenant Hubbard and Durham with respect to the most egregious and the most common questions that people want to provide in advance of the next meeting next Wednesday, to send them please by Monday. Everybody good with that?
Chair, you're on mute. You're on
Okay,
mute. We
then,
can't hear you, Chair. We can't hear you, Chair.
I can't, I'm sorry, I'm
Okay.
just joining
You-
this
Okay,
early.
we're closing the meeting, Marcia.
I got it.
I'll talk
So what you
offline.
want,
We're gonna end the meeting. Thank you so much.
okay, bye.
I'll call you and I'll give you and Julie, okay? Thank you. Somebody have a
Yeah, she's breaking up. I could barely hear you. So Marsha, I know you couldn't. Here's what happened. We have Lieutenant Herbert has done a phenomenal job, and he put the incidences or the elements of discipline into two categories, ones and twos. We were starting to go read through the first one that came up, but there's so much there that
Okay.
we couldn't gather, at least I couldn't gather it all with doing the speed reading. So we came around with a suggestion, can we look at the section ones, point out the ones that are most egregious and most common, start with those,
Okay,
email them out to us, give us 2 or 3 days to go over them and try to understand them. Then we'll meet again at our next scheduled meeting, which will be next Wednesday.
okay,
And
so
so-
we're expecting something emailed to us by Lieutenant
Yes.
Hubbard. Okay,
And it was Emeritus asked for it to be, if possible, sent out by Friday.
I got you.
And
Okay,
so we got a couple, 3 days to go through maybe five or six policies. And then
Okay.
when we meet up with the next Wednesday, we'll be better well versed on what's
and
going
so
on.
we're just commenting on the number ones, and Lieutenant Hubbard is gonna send it soon, whatever it is.
No, he's gonna separate out the most egregious and the most common in the number ones.
In the number one.
Right.
There's 40 number ones, it looked like, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna narrow that down to the most egregious.
Okay,
And then we'll start with that, with the most egregious, most common, and
Okay.
then work our way down. Then get to the twos, most
okay,
egregious, most common,
Okay.
and then like that.
all right, so this time can't necessarily be used for that because we're waiting for Lieutenant Hubbard to send
Right.
something. Okay, got it. Listen, everyone, I have something that lasts till 6 o'clock every day of the week, and it's hard for me to get here exactly at 6. So please give me grace. I'm glad that something was advanced here today, and everybody just have a good evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
All right, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.